welcome everyone to Become a Podcast Queen. We are currently live streaming into Facebook and also recording this episode for the podcast. I've got a very special guest here today called Sharyn Swan, and she is known as the Dot Connector, as well as championing Gen X women. And she's also a certified Sacred Money Archetype coach. So just to give a bit of background, Sharyn and I met face-to-face locally, which is amazing here in Australia, Newcastle specifically, at a Hunter businesswoman's networking dinner at this gorgeous restaurant called Noah's on the Beach. I think it was like a month or two ago now. I heard Sharyn's presentation and I loved what she was all about. So I reached out to her and asked her to come on board with us, basically. So here she is. So welcome, Sharyn.
Excited to be here.
So I really wanted to have you on because I found the money archetypes, and you went through about 8 of them at this particular networking women's dinner. And I sat there and, prior to coming, all of us had done the quiz through our emails and all this, and I got my results and I could relate to so many of them. And I was like, oh, I don't really know which one I am until I got the results. And then I realized how close all of my results were, and you noticed that was quite interesting as well. So I thought, let's have you on to kind of unpack what all the 8 archetypes are and how this can relate to podcasters and women in general, because often it leaks into other areas of our life, especially money and finances. That's such a big issue for everyone. But before we do, I'd love to hear a little bit about your money story and your background and what got you into this line of work.
Well, thank you. And yeah, it was exactly all of that. And I was delighted to have the invitation to share a little bit about money, because the takeaway question which we're going to get to is that every one of us is in a relationship with money.
Yes, 100%.
Some of us can be in a relationship that's not ideal, and it is a little bit, in a battle mentality, and we see each other as foes rather than friends. Rather than partners. And so that's actually what we'll be covering off today. And my story, I suppose, was that I've been working with women in business for a long time. And I remember there was a playing field that was really quite similar from, each person. They were working with similar product, similar compensation structure. And some people were being able to really grab a whole lot of commission out of that business, and others were struggling. And, what was it? And I had this just moment where it went, wow, this concept about our relationship with money and what are the backstories that have played into it, other people's opinions, other people's beliefs that have just, added and added and added into what we now are running in as our money stories and how they show up. And so that was a real aha for me to actually trigger off some learning. And as I was starting to get my qualifications and doing my own exploring of my beliefs, I became my own case study. And yeah, there were some really powerful moments which were very personal that came up. And I think that if I could share with you one of those, because it was really a big trigger point for me. And one of them was my relationship with my mother. And she was doing what she could do, but I lived with my grandparents from age 2 to 8 because my parents separated, divorced, and they just couldn't do life together. But I was seeing it from a child's perspective. So if I go back to that mentality and understand, she would say she would come and pick me up, but the day would pass and the week would pass and she'd forgotten to. And so when I was with her, she had sort of, some difficulties and in her communication with me. So what I made that mean from being, let's talk about a 4-year-old child, Olivia, and I've only just discovered this now, some decades on, was that I believe money makes women angry.
Ooh, yeah, that's a very big belief, isn't it?
Right. So that has played in its role in one of the foundational parts of my life, and every decision that's influenced since. I've just never known.
I think just hearing you talk about that, I know for me, with my background, instead of it being angry, it was more anxious. So, growing up in, a background where we struggled with money growing up, and it's such a common issue for a lot of people. The majority of the population can struggle with money. And then you've got, other people that thrive with money and do so well, and it's kind of working out how to get to that point. So yeah, like my childhood belief. As I was sitting there listening to you present at this place and I was on the beach, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I realized that, you know, growing up, money to my family was anxiety, not having enough of it, getting anxious, getting worried, not necessarily angry, but more sad. Do you know what I mean? And it can either go one or the other, can't it? You know, if you're coming from a negative money mindset.
Tons of different ways. And just hearing what you're saying, one of the phrasings that people who have got that anxiety in a home like that may have heard, I've got to rob Peter to pay Paul. You know, money doesn't grow on trees. What do you think, we're made of money? They are communications, sort of how we've shared that story between families and generations.
Absolutely, 100%. And it does pass down intergenerationally as well.
Sadly so.
Yeah. That's so, thank you for sharing that, because it's so important. And, you know, some people, everyone has a different background and relationship with money. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I think it's so important to find out what your archetype is as well, like your main primary one. So can you share with us what the 8 archetypes are?
Absolutely. And so if we take them from, there's the 8, we have Accumulator, Alchemist, Celebrity, Connector, Maverick, Nurturer, Romantic, and Ruler. Ooh. They are the 8. And let me tell you that the next question I get asked all the time is, well, which is the best one to be? There's no best one. They're just 8. Because each one of them has their incredible power. And in their zone, they are just alluring and intoxicating in a way. Yeah. And they have their shadow side. Now, when I talk about shadow side, I mean that there's something that's sitting off to the side that we would rather not identify, we would rather not deal with. And through the work that we do with the money mindset modules, using our 8 archetypes, we just bring that into the light. You know, we just move it out and go, here it is. And when you see something in the light, it's not as intimidating. It's not as scary as it is at midnight when you're laying there in bed and your mind is going crazy over things, right? Totally. The next day, things look a little calmer, and that's because there's more light. We're a bit more centered to do it, and that's what we want to help people to be more empowered in who their genuine archetype is.
So, would you say it's important to know what money archetype? So, first question, I guess, before we delve into it is, why is it important for women? Yeah, there's so many questions. Firstly, why do you think it's important for women to know their archetype? Yeah. And secondly, how can it help them by knowing what their archetypes are?
Beautiful questions. So first of all, why would you want to know? Again, we are in relationships with money. I want to help every woman to have a relationship with money that is respectful, that feels in, infatuation, in just like a relationship that you're seeking your partner, your ideal partner. Do you want to be in one that it's tolerated and, oh gosh, I don't know what's going to come next and it's passive aggressive? Or do you want to be one that's, you feel a flourish and there's a little flirtatious and, there's a real concept of joy and mutual development together and a future together that's all exciting. And that is genuinely what can happen in your relationship with money. Is if it can happen with your partner, you can have a love for your children that changes too. Might be flirtatious, but there is a joy for your animals, because it's all about how we set those precedences determines our whole life. And the next part about knowing your archetypes is that if you do understand who you authentically are, it shows you your gifts and strengths. And we actually have them on physical cards.
They're so beautiful. I
adore these.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
The profile cards for each of the 8.
Yes.
They have so much content and clues like you wouldn't believe. And what happens is that when I see clients and when I've got their programs and they can put them out here, they start to see the profile. They don't think that, oh, I'm a failure about money. I've got debt. I don't know how to handle money really well. I can't be bothered with it. I'm the only person on the planet that's got this issue.
Yeah.
No, you can actually use this tool to help yourself. So would you like me to tell you a bit about yours?
Yes, let's go through them. We're totally transparent. Let everyone know my results.
Fantastic. So would you like to share about the results that you got? Then I'll continue on with, because
Absolutely. Yeah, so before we carry on, just letting the audience know that this test or quiz is available to you guys as well. So it's not just, you know, I've taken it and you just have to listen to this. Like, you can actually go, it'll be in the show notes when this episode goes live on the podcast, and I might even post it in my Facebook group. So you can go straight through to the quiz and find out what you are and what the, you know, I guess, benefits and pros and maybe like things to work on for your particular archetype. And they're all numbered, like they're ordered. So when you go through the quiz and you get your result, it's not just like you get one archetype, you get a rating with all of your 8. So for me, I happened to receive the ruler as my primary archetype, and that was rated at 28. My second one was Alchemist, and that was at 25. Maverick was my third, and that was at 24, but that was also tied with the connector. So a lot of my results are quite close. 1, 2, 3. So my fourth one was Celebrity at 23, and then Nurturer at 22, which was also a tie with the Accumulator. And then Romantic at the end, 21, which surprised me because I thought, I'd be a bit more romantic than that with money. But anyway, so yeah, so feel free to unpack that.
Excellent.
Sharyn.
Okay. So here we are, and we have the ruler. So she's the empire builder, the alchemist, the idealist. And let's take Maverick just for the exercise of this, the rebel.
Ooh.
So when you get these 3 together, they actually play a role of what we call your money personality. The top 3 work together. And you'll see as we go through each of the profile cards, what the sacred strengths and gifts are for each one.
Cool.
The one takeaway, if you had nothing else from when you do your quiz and you find out what your top 3 are, make every decision from your strengths and gifts.
Ooh, I like that.
End.
Yeah, full stop. End
exactly, full stop. Because it is the alignment. This is truth for you. And you know, I've had hundreds and hundreds of people take the quiz, and I've had a few people only take it multiple times because they, oh really? Oh really? I don't recommend that because your subconscious is already primed to know what the questions are going to be. But so many people go, oh my gosh, nailed it, spot on, so me, so true, so accurate. So when we talk about the ruler, she is about creating the empire, loves to lead. And while she's leading, she's going to have a situation where it's all about transformation, taking people with her, positive change.
Yeah.
Of course, we like to take a little bit of risk as the Maverick. So imagine having some sort of risky transformation where she can lead people to a new place. What's also cool about Maverick, I love working with Maverick clients, is that they love fighting for the underdog.
Yes.
Seeing, you know, where is someone that needs elevation? Where can I be that, you know, shout out champion person for them too? Interesting for you, championing comes from an alchemist perspective. This is my number 1, right?
Ooh, interesting.
So it's really quite interesting that our strengths then come around that sense of daring. Nice little team up there with Maverick. Maverick is such a great character. These are wheeler dealer people. I live with my son who is a wheeler dealer. He can spot something for $5 and turn it into 8. You know, that's how he loves the thrill of the game and the chase about it.
Very entrepreneurial, isn't it, I guess?
Absolutely. So spot on. As all of them are. This one here especially, she's got the big vision for where to go. Now let's talk about the shadow sides, because there again are shadow sides. So this one, she's going to be a bit of a workaholic.
Yeah, I can relate to that a little bit. Just a little bit.
And can, you know, prioritize, wow, here's my next idea, because she's the ideas girl, remember, coupled with ruler, very powerful. But again, sometimes the lower priority become self, hobbies, socialization, friends, ahead of, oh, I just want to work on this project. I've got this really cool idea, right?
Totally.
And then we have this one that can risk the sense of security because, oh, okay, I'll just give this a whirl and I'm willing to show up big time about it. And it's not that this one's competitive necessarily over another person. It's, can I beat my best, you know? And so imagine, you know, these lot all team together. It's always this, right, what can we take on the world next with, and transform it and bring that sort of, you know, absolute power, which is exactly what you do, Olivia. And through podcasting, wanting that voice to reach where it is and help those people who also want to be, you know, playing in that space. And I think with podcasting and also the archetypes, it's really making sure your voice is aligned to your truth.
Yes, I love that. What I think is really interesting too, Sharyn, is, you know, I think, you know, before I did all this money mindset work and all that sort of stuff, you know, working through your shadow and all this, I reckon my results would have been totally different like 5-10 years ago, because for me, money back then, because I came from such an uncertain place with my family, really struggling with money. Like now I don't really struggle with money and it's great. But back then it was like paycheck to paycheck, you know, always worried about getting money, like food and money on the table. Well, yeah, that too, food and money on the table. But for that, because I grew up in such like that sort of environment, I was very security and certainty driven with money. I was always like, I've got to have that paycheck and I've always got to have this amount in the bank and all that sort of stuff. So the risk-taking behavior was very different for me before I worked through all this personal development around, you know, your relationship with money. So my question for you is does our money archetype change over time as we change, or is it once you're set with that, that's what you've got for life? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Really powerful question. And the answer is, in fact, no. It will just be enhanced. So when we look at the top 3, okay, so we're back here, you will notice at different seasons, you are leading in one more than the other. Okay. And I think that can be, again, two-edged. So that if I go, all right, let's talk about, I've got to create a new project, I'm working on an event, I'm working on a program, I'm going to lean into Alchemist because she's got that sense of transformation and what we're trying to accomplish. So we're going to be really focused in drawing her out. But at other times, you might be so much into her that you go, hang on a minute, I also have Accumulator in my top 3. So I just might need to lean into this one who is taking care of some of the details and the deadlines and the money, you know, in and out piece. So it's like where we focus our lean in. So if you feel that maybe in your past you've really heavily been loaded into one and neglected some of the others, now it's actually bringing you back sort of close to more center.
More balanced.
The other thing is, money relationships will keep developed till the day that we are no longer in these bodies, because we will keep evolving, we will keep changing, and our circumstances will keep changing. And even I work with millionaires and they still have money blocks because it's about relationships, and they may not be living a lifestyle that is completely what they thought was desired. They've taken a second, you know, version of that, want something that they've settled for. So when people say, oh, I don't know if I've got any money blocks. Okay, great. So are you living the life that you would love to live? Oh, hang on a minute. I'm a bit stressed out, or I don't have the peace. I don't have this, or I really like it that. Then let's look at what's blocking that.
Yeah, totally. I love that. That's a really great explanation. You know, like even when I think back when I was like a uni student, it was like just trying to get by. Do you know what I mean? Whereas now my mindset's so different. It's kind of like, where can I, you know, indulge in some self-care to nurture myself, to nurture others? Like it's such a different sort of mindset and belief system and a value system. Right. And it's funny too, because you can draw upon different parts of yourself, you know, the different archetypes when required. Because if you're too much in your risk taking, is that the Maverick, the risk taker, the rebel?
She's the risk taker.
Yeah, like if you're too much if you're out of balance, I guess, and functioning from a shadow unhealthy space, you could be, you know, throwing too much money away or taking too much risk and go to bankruptcy as opposed to, do you know what I mean? Yeah. True.
Perfect. And concept is that, you know, where is the tried and true? And one of the tools that we have in the programs is understanding where, using your top 3 and where your actual business genius zone is. So what your business model could look like that really is aligned best to who your archetypes are and what to stay away from.
Yeah, that's really cool. Very
because, you know, I watch some wonderful women who are nearly burnt out and broke because they're operating in a business model that is actually not aligned to their archetypes. They're operating on someone else's because they thought, oh, well, Sally's really clever at that and really great at that. I'll do it that way. And it's not a fit.
Yes. Oh gosh, I've been learning about human design recently, and it's the same sort of philosophy, kind of like what works for Sally down the road may not work for you. You might be built differently. Do you know what I mean? There's not like
Completely.
a universal blueprint that everyone needs to stick to. Everyone's so different, you know. Talking
Right.
of, let's move on to the next one. So we've covered ruler, alchemist, and maverick.
Yes.
Can you go through what a connector is?
Okay, so connector is all about relationships. And I'm just thinking of some friends of mine who are connectors. They are the social butterfly. Wherever there's a coffee date happening, lunch with the girls, they are, front and center, and likely got a series of them for the day. But they're also in business, really great at, put them in the role of sponsorships, collecting, vendor relationships. They are amazing at doing that.
Wow. They're good at sales and like events and that sort of thing.
But not so much in the dollar and converting and asking for the business. That's actually the issue. So they are really good at relationships, right? So drawing in people in the relationships, but they have a block that says, oh, but it's difficult to sell to friends and everyone's my friend, right?
Yes.
They've got a beautiful space of faith and optimism. And so, again, I worked with a company and we just needed to move some people around into their roles because we took the archetypes so seriously, and it worked beautifully. We took someone out of the relationship role with the clientele and put them in the back office, which was more about, the statistics and the analytics, and they just thrived. And we took someone who doesn't even care about the P&Ls, and we put them, right into the concierge roles, and it just thrived because they could just be in harmony of the space that they most feel identifiable.
Yeah,
so
they're aligned to their archetype.
connectors, love
so
connectors, right? Shall I move on to the next one?
Absolutely.
What would you like next?
The celebrity.
This one. Okay, so celebrity is all about, being in a big shot. And some people get a little bit, oh, but I don't celebrity. I want to confess I'm Kim Kardashian or something. No. It's all about, imagery and taking people into the warmth of the spotlight, being seen, being visible. And the part that I think the celebrity is, when I've worked with them in their truth of celebrity, is that they haven't actually wanted to show up, right? Because of some story that they've heard before, which has challenged their sense of worth and their security.
Right.
So it's like, oh, I've got a visibility issue, even though I'm really good at being a magnetizing, charismatic. I don't really let that loose to be. So yeah, celebrity can have a little bit of, oh yeah, hang on, well, thanks for asking me. They can get a little bit, have a little bit of attitude around that too. So fascinating. But I have a client who does design work, and she is so suited because she's a celebrity. It's all about creating that sense of show for people.
Right. I think
Perfect
actually
business model.
When I think back to the networking dinner we met at, I think during your actual presentation, you got everyone to look around the room and look for the different brands and stuff like that. So people that were wearing like lots of gold bangles or, whatever that, do you feel like the celebrity sometimes has to keep up appearances though, whether things are going good or not good for them behind the scenes financially? Or?
Yep. And they can, in the shadow side, can spend a lot of money doing that. So they can rack up a bit of debt because it's all about, showcasing with things that they think other people will find, and again, it comes from where's my worth, right? Where, that can really point through in that area. But they are actually not just a solo perspective. They are around, how can bring other people to, shine the light with them too.
Yeah, fascinating. That's really interesting. Okay. Yeah. What about the nurturer?
Oh, the nurturer. This is one I was thinking so much about with your podcasting, talents, and for your people who are, setting up and giving their podcast, is that sense of nurturing your audience, where they're giving information, where they want to be in service, and, have a sense of generosity about. This is the nurturer. And she's the one that all of a sudden someone's sick and they're racing the meals across to, be with there. I have a lot of clients who are from the nurturing space.
Me too. Yeah. And in fact, that night we were together, it was most of the audience were nurturers, weren't they?
Yes. You're
so many.
True. So their sense of caring and compassion is huge. And if you look at their strengths, giving, devoted, reliable, love it.
Yeah, nice quality.
The work for them is the boundaries.
Right. Yes.
So I'm sure podcasting has the same thing, where do I set the boundaries of, overgiving, and yeah, I think that we can all
Totally.
have that. Mm-hmm.
I think even like when I see it in podcasting, like it plays out in all areas, obviously, but if we're just talking about podcasting, it's like, for example, I know someone that started their podcast, wanted to do solo episodes, but then they attracted all these interviews. And so they were just showcasing all these other people and not actually connecting with their audience themselves. So they were giving the spotlight to all of these other people and experts that they thought, were way far ahead than them, and their audience wouldn't want to just listen to them solely and all this sort of stuff. And I could tell that was actually an issue for that person. Do you know what I mean? So they might have been more like the
so true.
Archetype,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well done. Yeah. And because their challenges come from a space where there is a sense of abandonment at times. And even though they're doing probably what you just outlined, Olivia, there may have been some inner resentment.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh gosh, here I am again doing that, so yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. What about the accumulator?
Oh, the accumulator. She's the banker. It's like the Monopoly girl, right? Really great, reliable, respect and appreciation. Fantastic for project management roles and just keeping things on schedule. Okay. Yeah. And I talk about this way because, it's really great. I'm also thinking about some of those interview guests that your clients would probably also have, and getting some mix of those archetypes, which marry up against the host. That would be quite intriguing as well.
It can be. Yes.
Yeah. So again, the accumulator is so trustworthy, but
sorry, can you just give me 1 second? Sorry, I've just got a bit of background noise. Sorry about that, guys. Hashtag real life. Carry on.
So with the accumulator, super trustworthy. However, very rarely gives trust out.
Oh,
right.
In what way? What do you mean? Like,
don't know if I need more. They need a lot of evidence before they will trust.
The way, when I think of podcasting, what comes to mind, actually, this is a big one. A lot of podcasters get stopped with perfectionism. So because for people, and by the way, a lot of my audience are business owners, and it plays out in business, not just podcasting, but it's like when you reach that point in business and you've got to build a team to delegate, take things off your plate, so you're going to do the things that only you can do, especially when you're getting like a podcast manager or an editor or a social media manager or a VA or whatever. A lot of podcasters are really scared of handing the reins over to someone else because they're worried that they won't edit as well as what they did, or, won't, get back to them right on time and all this sort of stuff. So fascinating.
And if their accumulator is high in their top 3, that will be enhanced tenfold. An accumulator doubts can go into a doubt even spending $20. Okay. Yes. So rather do the work themselves than outsourcing. Huge. And for them to make a decision that says, I'm going to invest in some of those resources you just outlined.
Investing, yes.
Right.
It's like a risk for them, risk taking.
It was just like, and then they, quick buyer's remorse, so what is the piece? So if you have a business that wants to attract accumulators in, because they're great customers too, of course, everyone is, then you need to sort of say, right, what is my support messages after they make a purchase that can keep reinforcing that they've made a great choice?
Yeah, so they don't back out or regret.
Exactly. Yeah. And if it's you who is an accumulator, then you go, great, every time I make a decision, I'm going to back myself on the decision I've made by doing what else can I bring in that supports me, not just getting a paper bag and having a, need to hyperventilate over the decision you've made. But what I can also learn, because, I've got accumulator in there, and so I can go, I'm now a greater intentional purchaser, because I go, you know what? I've really thought this through, and I've sat in it. So I have a little book that I write things down of things that I would like to buy, and I let it permeate a little bit rather than feeling like I'm making something a little bit more rushed and then triggering these thoughts. So it's just learning how to recognize that it is a strength and how to best handle it.
Yeah, beautiful. I feel like that would relate to a lot of people for some reason. I know as a business owner, I've attracted all of these different types of archetypes, as I'm sure everyone else has as a business owner. But it's so important to actually reinforce after they've purchased. Like, for example, if a podcaster was to invest in, a team member or outsource something, the person that they're outsourcing to, it's good for them to get onto the project quickly rather than leave it for like a week, because then the podcaster can be like, oh my God, I've just spent like a couple of grand and they haven't got back to me. Maybe they've scammed me, maybe they've taken my money, maybe I shouldn't have done this. Yeah.
Great example. And then we would move on to
the romantic.
And guess what? She's outsourcing in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I'm surprised she's my last one.
It's like, you know, the mundane tasks, I don't know anything about it, right?
That's me.
We've gone from, you know, one to the other. The romantic I really have grown to love because she's taught me so much. This is my lowest.
Is it? Oh, it's your lowest as well. That's so fascinating.
But another element I would love to add into this conversation is about your partners. Can I absolutely encourage you when you do your quiz to get your partner to also do the quiz, because it is such powerful language. So here you are, we talked about Accumulator. Remember, that's sort of in my top, you know, well, that's actually my second. This is my husband.
Is it?
Right? Inner hedonist, the pleasures of life. And so, you know, he will, oh my gosh, and he will be loving to look at, you know, he's always on car sales and boat sales and, you know, all these sorts of, oh my gosh, look at this, look at this. But he just loves the, you know, oh, how about that over there? But coming back to romantics, what they do so beautifully is actually they do storytelling.
Really?
So, sales related situation, had clients, real estate agents, and she was a romantic and she just wasn't even tapping into it. I went, my gosh, you're in the perfect job for this, you know, creating those open houses. And so we just brought in some ideas where she had the beautiful smelling of baked goods and this beautiful wicker basket, and she just didn't even think it was anything of these candles burning. And this was just from her real estate, not her homes, but just the message. And she was creating these beautiful stories about these dream homes for families. And they all are about the texture of things, right? So another client, she's just cleared a $50,000 debt with the tax office from
good on her.
Using her archetypes. It's the only difference.
Right.
And her romantic has actually been in her top 3, but she's not had a lot of time with it because of these mundane, other boring things, as she would say it. So I gave her permission to have a bit of time with romantic last week after reaching this milestone, and she's sending me these texts. Oh, the tactile, the metals, the fabrics, you know, that's how she has to have it. She has to have, even on a grazing platter, she's going to do the biggest, best grazing platter and have all these different things. That's just how they love. That's how they share. That's how their generosity is.
I love that. That's so good. Like, I am surprised it's probably my last one, because for those that follow me and know me, I'm all about like self-care as a podcaster, as a speaker, as a businesswoman, all this sort of stuff. But the workaholic in me, which I think was the Alchemist, that obviously does take precedence. So I have to balance it out with the romantic, you know.
But you're also coming back to Alchemist. You know, Alchemist have that sense of magic. She's, you know, the possibilities. And so you're leaning into Alchemist beautifully because she's all about that too. And so romantic just brings a different element. You know, they are a little bit more, oh yes, it'll all just show up. And they just have a sense of have the fun, whereas the Alchemist does have that work ethic as well. So, you know, I think it's probably more leaning into that. But the question in there is, because this will come up from your audience and when they do their quiz, is that the least ranked archetype, she'll have some lessons for you.
Really? So hang on, is she normally the least ranked one? Is that what you're saying for most people?
The least ranked archetype, when you get into your archetypes, and this is an advanced piece, so I will just flag that, you know, I don't want to be confusing you, but what I've learned from spending years with these tools is that when I really got into developing relationship and having my money personality, my top 3, make my daily decisions, make my business decisions, set up my business, make sure my business model, you know, was in alignment to those, making sure my clients, my dual clients that I want to attract to me, I already know which archetypes they are.
Yeah, you'll be able to read the signs, I'm guessing, before they even sign up.
I don't even have to do that. I just talk to them. So I actually wrote a whole segment in one of my programs about how to actually attract in the archetypes that you want. And I've got a matrix there. So you work out, oh, I actually want to attract romantics and archetypes, you know, which archetypes they are. And I tell you what your copy needs to sound like, how you need to talk to them about them. And they will just know it's them. You don't even have to know. They will self-select you because you go, oh my gosh, they get me.
Yeah,
she's
she's
talking
like
to me. Yeah, and they'll come to you. So these are all the decisions. But in the advanced work that I've done is that I have now gone to my least ranked, and it actually has these beautiful alignment questions on these cards. And I use these to help me reveal the shadow side of my top 3. A little more complicated, but just saying, you know, how you can keep growing and growing with these tools for life.
Yeah, and realigning through different life circumstances and financial, you know, wins and hardships and stuff.
Absolutely.
So the top 3 are basically what you act from on daily decisions, but then your bottom 1 or 2 are the ones that you need to work on usually. Is that right?
You want to work on your top 3. You want to really come to mind to say, am I acting in an empowered version of my top 3? I would really like that to be the takeaway message that you said, you know, if I got to meet and, you know, take them out for a date, my top 3, and got to know them well and consulted them for my decisions, you would be making some real big changes with your money relationship and finding powerful and quick changes to what's at bank, or the stress in your life. Your sense of enjoyment. Fulfillment is huge for women because we can often put that over a price point. And, you know, think about, you know, women as we rock up to an interview. We will be cautious about applying for jobs that, or even applying for opportunities, or, you know, putting in a tender for things that we think, oh, gee, I'm not quite qualified. A bloke is going to be way less qualified to go, I'll throw my hand into the ring of that.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing with your archetypes. And then in somewhat time, you know, as you get more comfortable and building a better rhythm with it, you might lean into your last one and go, okay, what's some clues here I can unlock?
Yeah, I love that. It's so fascinating. And I think even as the listeners or watching, listening, whatever, you know, you can start to kind of go, yeah, that's a bit of me, or yeah, that's a bit of me, or that's not me, I need to work on that, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, because even the night that, you know, I went and listened to you, the ruler was last. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I can relate to all of these in some capacity, but I'm like, I knew that the ruler was coming. I was just kind of like, oh, it just hasn't quite nailed it for me just yet, but I can relate to so many different aspects. And then when you, went through the ruler, I was like, oh my God, that's me.
Right. And then you take this beautiful truth, your soul truth, you know, you go, rank, okay, so let's go back to ruler, and you thinking from the other thing, courageous, visionary, determined. Wow. And gifts are creating an empire, innovation, new opportunities, being decisive and creating value. So you're going, right, is this opportunity, or, you know, am I acting like that? And one of the things that we say when we're doing our modules, okay, Olivia, if I was to follow you around all day, would you be innovative, seeking opportunities? Would you be decisive? And you're going, oh, hang on, no, right. That's where we're asking, you know, am I really living that in that moment?
I think actually, as you were saying that, quite a few months, probably at the start of the year, when I was like very, very busy, like, and this is the other thing too, like you can have money, but if it's costing your lifestyle, it's actually not that fulfilling, because you're like, oh yeah, it's just money, but I'm stressed, or I'm tired and I don't get to enjoy what I want, you know. So it's really about balance, is what I've discovered too, is like, I think for me, I did have a point to this thought and now it's kind of wandered off, but basically from just hearing about that, it's like actually making sure that you give yourself the space and time. So with the ruler, having that time, like for me, I need time away from the business, from the podcast, to actually get creative and innovative. Absolutely. Whereas if I'm too much in my business and podcast all the time and working and being a worker bee, as opposed to like a CEO and having a CEO day sort of thing, it's like my creative stuff is a bit squashed a little bit, because I'm acting and doing and in my masculine energy, as opposed to stepping away and letting that feminine energy come in and think about. And that's when I have drop-ins and ideas for the podcast, for the business, all that sort of stuff. So yeah,
absolutely true. It's understanding that that's part of the thing that can show up is with ruler. Oh, I can get so obsessed with this, and I need just to park that and go and, you know, go for a bushwalk, go for a swim, and reconnect with those nature spots, or those fun. Romantic, going and taking a hotel room, right? That's delicious. And wherever you go, oh, this can allow me to be re-inspired and bring and create a sense of communication in a new way. And, the two things that I've sort of distilled all this down of the work that I do, it's about create worth, share wealth.
Say that again. Create worth
and share wealth.
Ooh, that's
and
a great
feel
line.
that's just my mantra right now, that's dropping in as we're talking about from my archetypes. And I just go, it's about helping other women to find out what worth looks like to them, as we were talking about, what is money look like to you? What does income look like? What does fulfillment look like? What is creating worth? And in the work that we are in service to other people for, where's the worth that we create that people go, wow, you just nailed a solution, and throw money at you because you are taking pain away or you're increasing joy? Because that's the only two reasons that people buy, is either to, remove pain or increase joy. They're the only reasons. And as I say, unless you're a bottle of wine and you do both, but and then it's around share wealth, because a lot of women have a hang up about what wealth means. Yes. And being wealthy and being a wealthy woman. Mm-hmm. And wealthy women, we spend very differently.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
With intention and with gaps that we see in our communities and in other people's lives. So if we can exchange, because money is an energy, and if we exchange energy from our gifts to someone else who goes, oh, how do you do that? I feel overwhelmed with that. And go, oh, it's nothing for me, because it's a genius, because it's my strength and skill from my archetype, and I think nothing of it, because can't everyone do that? No, they cannot. And so I exchange money as an energy source. You've got transformation, I've got that. I can then move on to, doing good in the world.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that, Sharyn. Even as you were saying, how wealthy women, spend very differently to, I don't want to use the word poor, but women that are struggling with money, because I used to be poor, so I totally get that. No judgment to anyone out there. The old me would have tried to make a dollar stretch really far, right? And be like, I'm earning this amount, so I can only spend this amount. Whereas now I'm like investing all over the place in things, because I know that it'll be a return of investment, or it'll fulfill me, or it'll help others. And even like, two situations come to mind with that. One was I have a colleague and a friend who were in the car one day driving back from Sydney, and she's like, Olivia, can I ask you a personal question? And I'm like, yeah, go for it. I'm an open book. And she's like, why? Well, maybe not a question, but she's like, I never hear you complain about money. And she's like, why is that? And I'm like, well, and we had this big discussion, and I'm like, well, firstly, it's like, if I'm putting that out there into the universe, I'm just going to attract more of that suffering back. But also, I don't want to talk to my money like that. I don't want to feel like that about my money. Do you know what I mean? I want to come from that abundant space, not like I don't have enough, or I can't pay for this, or that costs too much, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And you do spend very differently. Do you know what I mean? I spend now sometimes just to make myself feel better. Like if I'm feeling really tired and exhausted and I need to fill my cup up, I'll spend money on a massage or a facial. Or I haven't had a facial for ages, like nails or whatever. But I won't sit there and go, oh, I've only got this amount of money that I can spend this week. This is the restriction. This, and it turns into a struggle. Like I open my mail now, because, these days when you get mail, it's always bills. I open it, but I'm not kind of like the old me used to stress about it and be like, oh my God, how much do I owe? Do you know what I mean? Can I afford it? Da, 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 da. Whereas now I'm like, I'm happy to pay my taxes. I'm happy to pay my bills. It means I can have my electricity and do what I love and watch TV with my family. And like, I'm happy to pay that. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to like, I hate bills. I hate paying tax. How dare the government spend all my money? All that sort of crap that I feel like a lot of people really struggle with, So I think it's just an important stipulation, to put out there the differences in how people, and even you actually, Sharyn, with the wallet. Sharyn did this wallet scenario on this presentation, right? I really loved it. She's like, I want everyone to get their wallets out. And so all the women are bending over, getting their bags and purses and pulling them out to the table thinking, oh my God, what is she going to make us do with this?
Hand over your credit cards.
Yeah, and I was like, is she going to try and get my credit card out or something? I'm like, what's going on? And you're talking about how, look at your wallet and what does your wallet say about your relationship with money? And it's on my to-do list to go buy a colourful, vibrant, maybe even like a floral colour type of wallet. But one thing I did do after that night was with my credit card, because I pay off my credit card all the time, I don't let it build up, I got a thank you sticker out of the diary that I've got.
Wow. awesome.
Actually, let me get it now. And I'll show it to you guys right now, actually. Hang on. So this is my boring wallet. It's just white. It's light, it's white, it's not too dirty. It's quite thick though. And this is my credit card. So I won't show all the numbers, but I put this little thank you sticker on so that every time I spend.
Oh, I love that. Awesome.
Yeah, it's giving gratitude and just saying thank you that I can pay for this. Or...
See, it's just, you know, that was a conversation that triggers other pieces. And this is exactly, I'm just loving that we have bringing the conversation about money to people.
Yeah, because it's such a taboo topic for a lot of people. It's like you don't talk about money, politics and religion. You know, it's a thing that...
So where do we learn? You know, I mean, money management is one thing, and then, but this relationship with money is equally important. One thing I would just like to pick up from what you just outlined is phrasing.
Yes.
Right. So money phrases are alive in our family generations, as we spoke about earlier. And one of the things, I learnt from an episode of from a older Black man who was a coach with the US basketball, and he just shared about poor and broke. Okay, and he just said to people, do not use the word poor, because if you use the word broke instead of poor, it just means that broke can have an opportunity of change. Whereas poor stays with you for a lifetime. And we're never poor. We have resources. We have our brains. We have our bodies. We have our spirits. We have our... And I went, wow, what a great, you know, learning that moment. And, you know, coming back to sort of one of the things that you can save money. You can be, get bargains, and especially as a Maverick and as an accumulator, they love getting great value for your money. Deals. I'm always about, you know, I'm a great manifester, and that's also Mrs. Alchemist showing up there too. So last year, which is a different topic altogether, I could totally talk about. Every year I track how much I manifest in a dollar terms. So last year, and this is not income or anything, it's just value, either savings I received, gifts I received, things that came in, $38,300 last year.
Woohoo.
And it was just that I track it because I have a game with myself every month, and I teach, you know, I call it Spot the Treasure. And so it's around to this money concept of, if you go, oh, I can't afford it. What if you translated that in as, I am not choosing to purchase that now?
Yeah, way more empowering. Or I'm going to be able to invest in that later. You know, not kind of
I'm not choosing. Exactly. Saying, you know, I'm not just choosing that for now. And it's just really simple. If you're out and you see something, you think, oh, I can't afford it. It all sets up more blocks and more barriers, layers and layers. You go, oh, you know what? I'm not choosing that for now. And you just move on. It's light. And I think I talked about maybe that night at HPW, the electricity bill. Did I tell you about the one that came in the post that day?
No, but feel free to share.
Oh, look, it's quite powerful, and it just completely supports, you know, your wonderful example. And, you know, our electricity bill came in, I think it was like $1,100 for a quarter.
That's right. Yes, please share this. This is great.
And, you know, after I sort of picked myself up at the letterbox and probably just needed a cool drink, I went, okay, I can go into this, exactly the things you just said, grumpy guts about things. And I went, righto, I'm going to take a different approach to this because something's got to change. And so I just sat there and wrote a list of every way that we had used electricity for 90 days. Yeah. And so it was like, great, you know, it runs the fridge and it runs the stove and the showers. And, you know, I could communicate to my clients via the internet and a computer, and we watch movies together as a family, and we listen to music, and we have lights, and all of a sudden, and I was just going on, I went, I should pay them twice the amount of money than what they're asking for. And so it was just that excitement that I was in appreciation for how electricity allows me to live.
Yes,
and show up in the world. And so the funny part was I had a really beautiful acceptance of, you know, of that particular moment in that relationship. Seriously, I could prove it with papers. The next quarter, I actually got a credit of like $300 or something that they'd actually charged me. And I was going, I think I could give you more money. And so, yeah, you know, what is that about when you honor a relationship? How does it, you know, honor you?
Absolutely. And even like, just to continue on with that point, it's like, even if, so you know how come like you might be walking in the car park and you see $1 on the ground or whatever, and you pick it up and you're like, oh yeah, great, I'll take it. But most people go, oh, it's only $1. It doesn't make much difference. Or they even walk right past it because they're like, meh, it's $1. Who gives a crap?
Or I don't want to be seen picking it up. Like I'm needing it. There's shame about that, right?
That's true. Kind of like, yeah, exactly right. I'll pick that up, and I don't do it out loud because I look like a crazy person, but on the inside I'm like, thank you, universe, or thank you, Lord, for sending that my way. And I treasure that, because I just feel like when you hone in on just being thankful for the little things, it's going to come back to you tenfold. Do you know what I mean? And as you even said there, you got grateful about your electricity bill, what it gave you, because it's not costing you, it's a gift really at the end of the day that you're investing in. It's allowed you and your family to live a certain way and to be a certain way and help your business and other people and serve people. Do you know what I mean? Like, even, hot water, being able to have a shower every day if you want one, or a bubble bath, or wash your dishes with clean water, compared to third world countries that don't even have that. Every time that I pay my podcast manager every month and my VA, I'm so grateful to send them that money, because I'm like, they get to help me and they get to help my business, and they get to help my podcast, and that helps me help others. And it's this beautiful flow on effect, and I think a lot of people can tend to think that money is, evil or bad or negative and all these sort of things, but it actually allows us to have so much and to do so much, So I think, reframing how we feel about that, rewriting our money story, taking really like a lot of awareness around our relationship with money as well, how we want to feel about it too, not opening up the app on your phone and going, oh, is that all I've got? Or I've maxed out my credit card, or all these things have been paid and I've only got this much left. Like, even saying that, I've only got this much left until, payday, or that client comes in, like, that's not an empowering thought or statement to have, and then you're going to bring more of that in, unfortunately, unless you work through that and change it. So it's fascinating.
There's so much in there. I'd love to also talk about, and those Queen's drops, and picking up. And when we play Spot the Treasure, it's about awareness. Okay, so it's the 3 A's, and it's acknowledgement and appreciation. It follows awareness. So I know that if they're dingled and dangled around in my peripheral, and I notice them, I'm being, trained to notice opportunities and to see if I'm alert to them.
Yes.
Because often we can go, oh, it's got to come in through the front door and it's tapping on the window, and we miss it. So it's to be part of that training for that opportunity. And the second thing is wealth distribution. As we thrive, and one of the biggest issues where money mindset, the modules help women in business especially, is around their pricing and the offers that they make to market, how they actually sell, the consultations and the offers that are all aligned, what programs, and podcasting is another tool to obviously sell something on the back end. And it's huge. And I watch women who offer such a beautiful service and solution, and they are scared to charge. They are charging way too low for what they're giving at a premium level, and let's help raise. So because it's I've been embarrassed when I've gone to buy something from someone, and that's the next thing, is that a lot of women don't actually let you buy from them.
Yes.
They make it so difficult. They put up so many stops. They don't automate their system. It's hard to book online. It's these, processes. That's where one of the key program that I run has this beautiful blend of those business basics, and being this in the sales role with the money mindset stuff.
Yeah, it comes into like fear and being scared of like charging your worth as well, which is a big thing for women in business and podcasting as well. 100%, like, such a good point to make there. So thank you. And the other thing I just wanted to touch on as well was, you've been publicly speaking or doing workshops and coaching, to a lot of events, over 2,000, that's a lot. So before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you, what got you the courage to be able to actually do this sort of thing and speak in front of rooms full of women, because even at the event that I went to, there was at least 60 to 80 women in that room, I think, maybe even more. I'm not too sure. And you spoke so eloquently, and, you really connected with the room and got everyone involved. They weren't just sitting there back passively, with their mind off with the fairies, like going, when is this finished? I just want to eat. Women were engaged, they were really reflecting on, what their parents, how their relationship is with money, and how it's affected them personally and their children and all of this sort of stuff. So, so tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, wow. That started probably a long time ago. And my uncle, who just a beautiful soul, he would say, I have the gift of the gab, which is a family gene that shows up in a lot of us. But outside of that is that if I was to distill it down, is be clear on what you want to help other people with.
Yes,
right?
that's great.
And when I go into a situation where I know that I've got an audience for a very short time, whether it's a few minutes or even, an hour, what would be the 3 things I would love them to be thinking about in the car on the way home?
Yes.
And
yes.
if I could get nothing more than those 3 things, what would those 3 things be? Because again, we've probably been talking for an hour or so, and we could keep talking for days in a way. And that because you just get so excited and you get into this when it's your thing. Yeah. But you can only convey a couple of moments.
That's right.
And try and do that with their pickup, because they might be hearing it for the very, very, very first time. This whole idea about, in this case, a relationship with money. What?
Yeah, what's that?
I've been talking about it for years or something in podcasting. You've been talking about it for, a long time, and it's the first interaction. So that's mindful as well. And the last thing is, again, your archetypes. So as an alchemist, I need to think that something's transformational, has some sparkle and magic about it. So my style is always going to be participative. When I was sought after by, HBWN to speak, I said, I will if I can do it as a workshop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's where I shine, is that I want people to be able to, get the information and connect with it and be able to take it into their lives.
Absolutely. I think the 3 things I took away from your speech was, what the money archetypes were and how they play out. I made a note that I need to buy a new wallet.
Should be on commission with a wallet seller.
That's it. And the other thing too, I think, was just, like with your speech, from that night, it was very you were very vulnerable at the beginning, sharing a bit of your personal history and relating it to your family, and also relating it into different levels of life. So I just loved it. So yeah, so I was going to say thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I actually have the cleaner here about to vacuum down in the foyer, so we're going to have to probably end this soon, I'm afraid.
How lovely.
You're not going to be able to hear me anymore. But yeah, where can people find you online if they want to work with you or check you out, and even go to your quiz and find out what their own archetypes are?
Please go and do the quiz for your own entertainment. It takes about 8 minutes to do the quiz. So if you head over to SharynSwan.com, you will find that up on the top banner it says, freebie. And it's do the quiz, you get the results instantly. The next step for you is to take my starter pack. It's free, and it's a money mindset makeover. It just gives you a bit more detail of what we've spoken today. I actually have a little video and audio in there that shows you each of the 8 archetypes and where they have leverage for you in your business, how they show up for you, where's the little kryptonite moments, as I like to call them, and then how they play up in business. So just to teach you a little bit more about it. And so it's a little 3-step little mini course. They're completely free, valued about $500. And I'd love you to take advantage of that. Socially, find me on Instagram and Facebook, and I also have a group for women business owners where we talk money mindset and doing life, in our version of our chapter for now.
Lovely. Love that. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sharyn. I really appreciate you coming on and giving us your time and going through all the archetypes. I think it's really going to help a lot of women out there, especially when they're new to hearing, the language we've used as well. Yes. There might be some listeners out there that know a little bit about what we're talking about, but it just kind of gives a fuller picture when they find out their archetype and whatnot. And maybe even get some listeners and watchers to think differently about money. Do you know what I mean? Not thinking it has to be a struggle or that poverty, poor, broke mindset, and intergenerational stuff. Because, we are imprinted from our families with their money beliefs, and also helping, podcasters apply this as well in their podcast and their business as well. So thank you so much.
A pleasure. And just that, when you just said that then about, the generation, what if you don't choose to do this work, you keep passing on those limited beliefs and those stories to the next generation?
Yeah, to your kids, nieces, nephews,
grandkids.
Yeah. What are they going to have to work through? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. So I know that it's on my watch that I'm making some effort around clearing up some of the generational backstories and, pass that legacy and that baton on forward.
Absolutely. And just before we wrap up as well, just something to add to that. I actually have a client who signed up to my program, right? She's a mother of 6 children. So she could spend, you know, the money that she's invested in my program in 6 different ways, if not more, right? But she had this vision and this sole purpose, and she realized, I need to invest in this because I've got to get it out there. You know, it's part of, you know, who she is and what she wants to do. And I just thought that is so incredible. Like, she must have a good money mindset to do that, because a lot of mums that have got 6 kids and demanding life and a business, you know, they can put their money towards anything else. But she knows that, you know, by having a podcast and she gets her message out there, she can help other women build her business, help her children, because once again, you get that money back. She can invest it in her kids, you know, in clothing, bedrooms, whatever it is that she wants to invest in her children. And I just think, you know, it's such an inspiration, because, you know, those sort of stories don't get shared enough, I don't think. So yeah, it's amazing what investing in yourself, can actually do. Do you know what I mean? For your family. So.
And interesting to say about that woman, because there will still be some, as much as those kids are fabulous and it's nothing about those, there is something still missing. And that's where this sense of fulfillment. And as we get older and into our 40s and beyond, we lose those places to play on teams and to show up. And we wonder where our contribution is from what we have as our gifts outside of, you know, caring for other people. Because you get to the stage where you're caring for elderly parents, or you've got, you know, some young ones needing you. So that's what we'd be driving her, is that sense of fulfillment to pass on her message to the world.
Absolutely. And imagine what her kids are going to take away from that.
Yeah.
Going, oh, wow, mum actually is, you know, doing something for herself as well. Like, that's really great. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, completely.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Sharyn.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problems.